The Many Saints of Newark is a prequel to The Sopranos, guys, and I've got to tell you that this was a movie I was very excited to see because not only is John Gandolfini's son playing a younger version of himself as Tony Soprano, it's a really cool way to get us reintroduced into the Sopranos universe. I watched the show, guys, a while back and absolutely loved The Sopranos. What a great show, man. One of my top 10 favorite shows of all time. I thought it was absolutely incredible. So when the movie got announced that this was going to be in the same realm of, being a Sopranos story, I got incredibly excited. And let me start by saying this, guys. The movie, to me, was underwhelming. Look, I enjoyed a lot of aspects of this movie, but there were a lot of things I didn't like either. So let's talk about that. Number one, some of the things I really liked, guys, I loved the acting here. I thought, John Gandolfini's son playing Tony Soprano. John Gandolfini's son, Michael Gandolfini, played Tony Soprano as a younger version. I thought he was great. I thought that Alessandro Nivola, who played as Dickie, was great. I thought that, John Bernthal, a number of these actors in this movie were fantastic. I thought that the set pieces were really good. It really felt like The Sopranos as far as from, just the landscaping and all of that very much so gave you that feel of The Sopranos. Now, obviously, guys, that was something that I really, kind of latched onto, but I really felt, guys, that the story was, the weak points of the story were that it really felt more about Dickie than it felt about, of course, Tony Soprano. And, so from the marketing perspective, they made this sound like this was kind of like the origin story of, who made Tony Soprano and all of those things. But at the same time, it really felt like the focal point was going to be Tony Soprano, but it was going to be about his rise to power. And that's not at all what this was about. This was about, Tony Soprano from a very early age being introduced and seeing things happening within the mafia and then kind of just growing up with that as a normal lifestyle. But Dickie was, of course, the main character here in this story. I mean, it was all about really him and the things that were going on in his life. And, of course, guys, Dickie, though, is a Maltesanti. That was, his last name. That was, and obviously, guys, when you're seeing, like, the different crime families and all of that, it really, I thought that they did a good job kind of deciphering between everyone. But the problem with that was it wasn't centered whatsoever around Tony Soprano, around his rise to power. Now, granted, I'm going based on this being a solo film. Not that there are plans to make a sequel. Now, if they're going to be making sequels to this, which, by the way, I really hope they do, or maybe a spin-off show, something of that nature would be absolutely awesome as well. But I really felt that from an acting perspective, I thought it was great. I thought some of these actors and actresses may very well get nominated at the Oscars. Number two, though, I just didn't feel as good about really the direction that they went in. The director, guys, was Alan Taylor, and I didn't really like where it was going. There were some really dull moments throughout, I would say, kind of the middle of the movie. Picks up a little bit at the end, but it still felt very much so as a story about Dick Maltesanti and not about, our guy, Tony Soprano. So I thought the direction was not very good with this movie. But nonetheless, I'm very excited to see, are they going to continue this story moving forward? They kind of left the door open like, hey, this very well could continue. I would love to see them continue making movies in this universe up until we see, obviously, where the show picks up. I thought that would be something really cool. But nonetheless, guys, those are my thoughts on the Many Saints of Newark. This was a movie that you have to remember, me being a big fan of the show and going into this with the high expectation, because we're talking about The Sopranos, you're putting yourself on a pretty high pedestal, at least in my book, and I did not think that it was not quite there. But it was you know, I think for some of you, if you haven't watched the show ever, it may be a good introduction to kind of the story, the lore, the legacy of The Sopranos, and you may have some fun with it. But I felt like there were too many slow moments. It wasn't about Tony Soprano specifically, more about Dickie, and that kind of hurt it as well. Not a lot of action either in it, which normally The Sopranos isn't really all about action. It was more of like a drama, as being a crime drama. But I will give it this, guys. I'll give it that the acting was great, and some of the really immersing you into the world or bringing us back to Sopranos was fantastic as well. That being said, though, guys, I'm going to be giving it a 6 out of 10. 6, you know, I feel that this was something that some of you may enjoy, some of you may not, depending on, obviously, a number of factors. All film is subjective, so what you think is great, I may think it's not that great, and what I think is not so great, you may think is awesome. But I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts. What do you think about The Many Saints of Newark? Let me know in the comment section down below. Let's have a real conversation about it. And for more The Many Saints of Newark content and videos, stay here with Zero TV.